Some polls. Great. Illinois. The NBC poll that puts Clinton at 51 was taken from the 4th to the 10th. This is a polluted sample. But I would suspect that Sanders takes a huge lead in polling after the 8th. So this poll likely overstates support for Clinton by integrating data before last Tuesday. I want to be clear about what I'm doing here. I'm doing exactly the opposite of what the aggregates want to do. They want to say that you want to average polls over a longer distance to smooth the data out. That works fine in some circumstances, like measuring responses to advertising. You can buy a sandwich the day of the polls or the day after or a month later even, but it's simply awful modeling for politics. The aggregate sites will point to this poll as more accurate because it was taken over a longer period. But I'm suggesting the longer period is just polluting the sample. Based on that poll alone, I would suggest a slightly better result than we saw in Michigan. There is another poll with Sanders ahead at 48 to 46. I guess there's 6% undecided. On the one hand, this is an internet poll, and the predictive abilities of internet polls are widely variable. There is no margin of error. On the other hand, it was conducted March 9th to 10th, so that's after the event. So despite not liking the methodology, this is entirely consistent with everything that I'm saying. I don't have a good pool, but I don't want to just average them out either. The reality is that the data for Illinois actually looks better for Sanders than the data for Michigan did. Plus, Illinois is a very blue state. It is actually reasonable to predict a comfortable Sanders win if you consider that this is an open primary, the state is full of liberals, and the phone polling is being done with Democrats. But the correct answer is that the data is inconclusive. Something to note, though, is that Illinois will likely provide the data that is necessary to permanently throw away the racial theories of support. It's going to split on a left moderate axis, and that will assert itself across racial lines. The question is just, can Sanders pull more moderates out of independents? How much is Clinton going to bleed to Trump? How many moderates can she get to vote for her? And these sorts of things. I think it's clear where the lines are drawn. It's just a question of who can get the turnout the most. And that's what Sanders has been saying the whole time. If he gets high turnout, I'm going to say this here because this won't be up until well after it comes up. I think that Sanders is going to win Illinois by a large margin. He may even get 70%. Ohio. We're looking at the same breakdown in the two polls. The phone poll is sampling over too long of a period and over a defining pivot point, while the internet poll is solely after the defining event, and Sanders is doing better in the polling done solely after Tuesday. There is again not a perfect poll here, but there is reason to suggest a very close result, given that they're strictly polling Democrats. But remember, Ohio is very purple. It doesn't have the liberal base that Illinois does, and it doesn't consistently lean Democrat like Michigan does. So the polling, if you read it right, doesn't look so bad, but the demographics are less in Sanders' favor than Michigan or Illinois. I think Ohio is going to be very close. Florida. Clinton is comfortably ahead here, and the event doesn't seem to have registered much. Florida is the old folks' home of the nation, and these voters tend to be low information and driven by routine. So Bernie needs to try and keep it under 60%, and that is key, because Florida is a very big state. I think it's obvious Clinton will win. The news reports will say something about, blacks or Latinos or, women. I think that if you look at it a little bit more closely, you'll see that the reason that she's going to win Florida is because she is going to demolish him with the old folks vote. She could get, 90% of, the over 50 vote. And that's what's going to have her win that state. Bernie needs to hope that Clinton stays under 60 and doesn't run away with it too much, because there's a lot of delegates there. Missouri, there's literally no polling. It's a purple state. I would expect it to split. North Carolina, also no polling. Now listen, Obama won North Carolina in 2008, but Obama is a conservative, so that's not so strange. And one must again expect Clinton to win North Carolina very comfortably. I'm throwing around 60 as a number uh, in Florida. I think that 70 is a number in North Carolina. If he can keep it under 70, um, then he can get a couple delegates out of it, and that's what he's got to be hoping for. And I believe he did keep Virginia under 70 as well. So that's probably close to what you're looking at there. And that is the takeaway, okay? If he wins big in Illinois, and I think he might, then he could gain delegates, right? So he might come away with more delegates if he wins big in Illinois. Otherwise, he's going to be struggling to not get further behind. But remember, it was always about California. Always. When this started, it was about California. And hence what happens between now and California is not so great of importance. Obviously, he wants to prevent her from getting too far ahead that California doesn't matter, but that's probably not going to happen. There's a couple of states coming up. He has to win New York by a substantial margin. But it was always going to come down to the vote in California and who can get the most delegates there. It was always about that. Okay, so don't get too excited or too lost or too upset or whatever. It was just always about that vote. Until then, you do what you can. You get out and you vote, but it's not going to be decided until June. Deal with it.